Tonight, the President signs the 2023 appropriation bill of 21.83 trillion naira, as well as the 2022 supplementary appropriation and finance bills into law for immediate implementation. Ahead of the APC rally in Kano State tomorrow, the party's presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, meets with stakeholders, promises to transform the commercial city if elected president next month. And more endorsements for Labour Party's presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, as he meets with women in Abuja, says role of the female gender critical in turning the nation's fortune around.
On business news tonight, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry expects the central bank MPC to raise key lending rate to 17% at its upcoming meeting to curb persistent inflation and prevent capital flights.
On sports news tonight, five-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo unveiled as Al Nassr player in Saudi Arabia.
From Abuja, it's high expectations for 2023 as workers in the public and private sectors resume duties after the Yuletide and New Year celebrations.
And in international news from London, Palestinians have condemned a visit to a contested holy site in Jerusalem by a far-right Israeli minister as an unprecedented provocation.
For one last time, President Muhammadu Buhari has put pen to paper in approval of a full-year budget, the 2023 appropriation bill with a total expenditure of 21.83 trillion naira, the highest in the nation's history. The budget, which he says is for immediate implementation, is expected to aid the transition process to another democratically elected government in a few months. The president also sent it to the 2022 supplementary budget in response to the havoc caused by the recent floods. Our State House correspondent Gloria Mezoke reports from the council chamber.
It is the first workday of 2023, and the President begins the year by presiding over the signing ceremony of the final budget of his presidency at the Council Chamber. Themed a budget of fiscal sustainability and transition, the President, flanked by the leadership of the National Assembly and some members of the Executive, then signed the 2023 appropriation bill alongside the 2022 supplementary budget into law. The President remarks that in spite of his signing, there are concerns bordering on changes to the executive budget proposal made by the National Assembly, which needs to be addressed.
I have also noted that the National Assembly introduced new projects into the 2023 budget proposal, for which it has appropriated 770.72 billion naira. The National Assembly also increased the provisions made by ministries, departments and agencies by 58.55 billion naira. Nonetheless, considering the imminent transition process to another democratically elected government, I decided to sign the 2023 appropriation bill into law as passed by the National Assembly to enable its implementation to commence without delay. I have, however, directed the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to engage with the legislature to revisit some of the changes made to the executive budget proposal.
The President made clear that the budget design takes into consideration strengthening the economy as well as smooth conduct of the elections and transition. He equally urged the legislative body to reconsider its stance on the proposed ways and means advance from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Failure to grant the securitization approval would, however, cost the government about 1.8 trillion naira in additional interest.
The leadership of the National Assembly subsequently responds to the President's earlier request.
While we are trying to consider and pass the request, we will insist on getting the right documents for our committees to ensure that whatever they advise us to do in the two chambers are based on information and knowledge, and not just passing ways and means without knowing what it is.
The executive did everything they could, and we have even a wider view, a bird's eye view of what's going on in all the agencies, and we have also complemented what the executive has done. There's no you did, you didn't do. No, it's all for the good of the country.
Now, as a matter of routine, the Minister of Finance will give a breakdown of the 2023 budget at least before Wednesday. But more importantly, it appears as though the executive and legislative arm have decided to take up the challenge of ramping up the nation's revenue and minimizing deficits. Now, these are critical issues they say will receive utmost attention before the end of this administration. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To politics now. Ahead of tomorrow's campaign rally by the All Progressives Congress in Kano State, the party's presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, is asking Islamic clerics to desist from preaching hate as elections draw near. He gave this advice during an interactive session with clerics from the Northwest region in Kano State. The APC flag bearer also paid homage to the Emir of Kano, Alhaji Aminu Adobayero. Our correspondent Sadiq Ilyasu has more.
The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Asiwaji Bola Tinubu, is interacting with stakeholders ahead of his campaign rally in Kano State, Northwest Nigeria. A session with Northwest Islamic clerics is on the card as he arrives the commercial city.
Security, making our economy one of the widely shared prosperity, and including agriculture, as a key factor, will be the three pillars of my government: safety, jobs, and food security. Regarding security, my policy is not an artificial created to sound good for this campaign. No.
At the palace of the Emir of Kano, Governor Abdullahi Ganduje sheds light on the program of APC's presidential candidate in Kano State.
Royal Highness. Rally tomorrow, decided as usual. Alios.
On the issue of his health condition, the APC presidential candidate asked Nigerians to shun those who claimed he is not fit.
Those who thought I was not agile enough, they test their salt, particularly Ibrahim Makari. I only read not to call a blacks for him as a Pamarwa.
The Emir of Kano, who spoke in Hausa, appeals to the electorate to get their permanent voters' cards so that they vote the candidate of their choice during the election. The presidential candidate is expected to address thousands of supporters at a rally on Wednesday. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
And elsewhere, the Labour Party flag bearer has been speaking on the role of women which they can play in rescuing Nigeria from what he describes as the current downward slide in all areas. They stated this during a town hall with women in the nation's capital, adding that he has been to several internally displaced persons camp in the last few weeks, and women and children make up the highest numbers. But this, according to Mr. Obi, is why women must mobilize and come together to collect their permanent voter cards and vote for the Labour Party in the coming elections.
I know we can do it. You Several women groups across the country, led by the wife of the Labour Party presidential candidate, are here to rub minds on ways to ensure the success of the Labour Party at the 2023 general elections. Mr. Peter Obi tells the women that amongst the leading candidates, he's the only one who identifies with them and meets with them regularly, from IDP camps to youth town hall meetings.
How do we look at unemployed people in the street? How do you look at people who have worked, whose pension have not been paid? And you're running around, living a first-class life. During holidays, you go to the moon and celebrate with your children and come back with their money. It doesn't happen anywhere.
His wife, Mrs. Margaret Obi, laments that women in Nigeria have underestimated their power to make things happen and urges them to rise to the occasion on the 25th of February of this year.
It don't reach time where we go say enough is enough. God don't they come down. I be Christian and they go church. God they walk through person. And he don't give us opportunity. Make we not throw away am. Today we they suffer. Our children they suffer. I beg, it don't do. Make we come out, come vote. Don't make anybody deceive you. Say woman no fit do anything. I give you common example now. We get head though. All our men, with all due respect, to now be ahead though. But you see, you fit turn your head if this neck no work. Oh yeah, try am now.
Other speakers tell the women why they must participate and vote in the elections.
We are ready to go to that Nigeria as women, where our children will not go to school and come back and sit down at home because they don't have jobs. Waiting for us to feed them again after feeding them through school. And now we have to feed them again after graduating.
You know why? Because we are not at the table. We are not at the table, but yet we are the ones who put people at the table. We are the ones they come to when they want votes. They tell us with all those sweet words. I say to you today, this is a battle and we have to go on. We can't stop. We must get the Nigeria that we all want.
The party is promising to ensure that women have improved access to healthcare and sanitation, credit facilities for trade, and a seat at the decision-making table in the administration of Mr. Peter Obi. Delia Moyeni, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, barely 2 days after former President Olusegun Obasanjo made public his support for the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, another elder statesman, Chief Edwin Clark, has endorsed the candidacy of Mr. Peter Obi for the presidential election holding next month. Chief Clark cites what he describes as Mr. Obi's honesty, trust and transparency while he was governor of Anambra State as some of the reasons for endorsing him. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, Chief Clark asked Mr. Obi to tackle the injustice and environmental degradation in the Niger Delta region if elected.
A transparent president, a president who is strong, a president who is educated, a president who is humble, a president who has every leadership quality that we want. We don't want a president we have to beg to sit down, to find out whether he will fall, or whether he can stand or he can fall. He will fall. We want a president who should not be acting his age. A president who should be selling his age from time to time. We don't want a president who will be swearing year to year how old he is, how young he is.
In part 2, after the break, in continuation of our assessment of sectoral performance in 2022, we shift our attention to the judiciary tonight. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. The president signs the 2023 appropriation bill of 21.83 trillion naira, as well as the 2022 supplementary appropriation and finance bills into law for immediate implementation. Ahead of the APC rally in Kano State tomorrow, the party's presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, meets stakeholders, promises to transform the commercial city if elected president next month. More endorsement for Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi as he meets with women in Abuja, says role of the female gender critical in turning nation's fortunes around. And Palestinians have condemned a visit to a contested holy site in Jerusalem by far-right Israeli minister as an unprecedented provocation. Well, let's now bring you more on the endorsement of the Labour Party presidential candidates. This time, the governor of Benue State, Mr. Samuel Ortom, has applauded the decision by former President Olusegun Obasanjo to back Mr. Peter Obi. The governor, who says he would have led Mr. Obi's campaign if he wasn't a member of the People's Democratic Party, recommends him to Nigerians as a man he believes has the capacity to effectively manage the affairs of the country. In a statement through his spokesperson, Mr. Ortom affirmed that the president Nigeria needs at this challenging time is one who understands the urgent need to unite the people and redirect the ship of the nation. A Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, has warned that the crisis in the People's Democratic Party, PDP, will be more complicated if those opposed to his views in the party continue to abuse him. Governor Wike, who was reacting to comments that trailed his take on Chief Olusegun Obasanjo's endorsement of Labour Party presidential candidate, explained that what he said was born out of genuine concern for the image of the party. Governor Wike stated this during the flag-off of a road construction in the state.
I was not mocking anybody. I was merely worried. When my prayer was, look, let Obasanjo remain quiet and not say anything. That was about my prayer, but my prayer didn't work. Because my prayer was that if this man makes any statement, it indicts us, right? Because he was president under the People's Democratic Party. He was for 8 years. And he worked with our presidential candidate for 8 years. Did you understand me? He worked. And the campaign of our presidential council is that our presidential candidate, during the 8 years, did very well with experience, is it not? And one now considers that, look, having done so, then the principal will hand over to Nigeria. Having done this, this is a person that I think should do this work better, is it not? But when the principal has go and say, no, it's the right person, it worried me. And that's why I said, look, something is fundamentally wrong. And instead of them to say, look, what do you think is wrong? You're abusing me. What did I do? Abuses upon abuses. Without change it will not change anything. Rather, it will spoil more things. Is it not correct? What you don't know, ask people. Seek for advice. People will help to solve the problem. If you like, go and bring all these boys, hang around boys, looking for food to eat, to abuse us. You are spoiling the matter.
Meanwhile, 52 days to the general elections and the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party apparently still looms. But to put an end to the internal conflict amongst leaders in the party, Governor Doyedere of Bayelsa and Governor Obaseki of Edo State have paid a solidarity visit to their Delta State counterpart and the PDP vice presidential candidate Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, where they appealed to the G5 governors to sheath their swords and work for the victory of the party at the polls. The governors were in the Owalere home of Governor Okowa to also felicitate with him on the new year.
We want a united PDP, and at all times when we meet, we always focus on the unity of the party. And we are not foreclosing speaking to our brothers. Even today, we've talked about that, and we are still calling on our brothers to be part of their own party and work in unity with every other person. So we are not foreclosing anything. We still want our brother governors so that we can visit them the way we have visited our colleague here in Delta, who by God's grace will be the vice president of this country.
Now, for many Nigerians, the year 2022 was filled with drama, surprises, and controversies, and the judiciary had more than its fair share of the three. From the unprecedented resignation of the then Chief Justice of Nigeria to the controversial formation of a parallel law association to the Nigeria Bar Association, there are questions about how the third arm of government demonstrated its resilience and importance to the sustainability of Nigeria's socio-economic and socio-political well-being. In this next report, our judiciary correspondent Shalashi Ali examines the sector in the past year.
It started like a rumor in the early hours of June the 27th, 2022. By noon, there was official confirmation that 68-year-old Justice Tanko Mohammed had resigned on grounds of ill health as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. By evening of the same day, a new acting CJN, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, had been sworn in by President Muhammadu Buhari. It was unprecedented in the nation's history, as Justice Mohammed's resignation came about 18 months before his retirement in December 2023, when he would have clocked 70. Although everything happened in quick succession, 7 days earlier on June 20, in what many Nigerians described as the first of its kind in the 58-year history of the Apex Court, 14 Supreme Court justices had written a protest letter to the former CJN over their welfare and the operational challenges that had almost crippled efficient adjudication of cases in the courts.
Somehow the judiciary gets forgotten as the third and equal arm of government. So you find the executives appropriate things to themselves, the legislature. I mean, you can't compare a judge of the Supreme Court to a senator in terms of emoluments.
The next most senior judge, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, who initially took over in an acting capacity, has since been confirmed as substantive CJN. But the problem of the depletion in number of the Supreme Court justices still persists. In 2022, Justice Ejembi Eko, Justice Mary Peter Odili, and Justice Abdul Aboki all retired from the Apex Courts. And with their exits, the number of justices at that court dropped to 12, as against the maximum constitutional requirement of 21.
Only 12 of us are there now. 12 are functional. One of us is seriously indisposed for a couple of months now. An attempt to bring in more justices, there's no fund, there's no money.
The issue of better funding for the judiciary no doubt loomed large in the year 2020. And even though in February, a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court justices in a split decision of 6 justices to 1 nullified the Executive Order number 10 on the ground that the President overstepped the limits of his constitutional powers, reprieve came in July when Justice Obaseki Osegai of the National Industrial Court ordered the federal government to commence an improved salary structure for all the judges. On November 18, President Buhari revealed that he had approved the immediate implementation of an enhanced salary and welfare scheme for judicial officers nationwide. Away from money matters, attention will no doubt continue to be on the judiciary, especially with the fast approaching 2023 elections. In February of 2022, President Buhari assented to the amended Electoral Act, which among other things gave exclusive jurisdiction over pre-election cases to the Federal High Court. At the bar, there was also a change of guard in July when the association's elections returned Senior Advocate of Nigeria Yakubu Mekiel, who took over from the Olumide Akpata-led administration on August 26. Hardly had the new ESCO settled down, when in October another professional association of lawyers called the Law Society of Nigeria led by Senior Advocate of Nigeria Kunle Oguba, surfaced, threatening to end the monopoly of the 89-year-old Nigerian Bar Association. The NBA has, however, resisted the move and promised to sanction the promoters of the parallel association, as well as move for the delisting of the body.
My administration will not, under any guise, ignore, overlook, or sweep under the carpet any alleged act of professional misconduct brought to my attention against any member of the profession, not minding his age at the bar and status in the profession.
The courts were very busy with numerous cases in 2022. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Inspector General of Police, and the Chief of Army Staff were all jailed for contempt in quick succession, although Bawa and Baba were later left off the hook after they purged themselves of their contemptuous actions. Some notable politicians like Peter Nwabushi, a senator representing Delta North, Basi Albert, a governorship candidate of the Young Progressive Party in Akwa Ibom, and Doyin Okupe, Director General of the Peter Obi presidential campaign, were also handed various prison terms by the courts. But Okupe, who was given an option of fine, has since been released from custody. As the judiciary commences its business in 2023, many hope that stakeholders in the sector will prioritize and institute reforms to tackle corruption and indiscipline among judicial officers and lawyers, the high cost of litigation, poor funding, delay in court process and prison congestion, and commit to deliver justice faster and without discrimination. Shola Sheyeli, Channels Television News.
To take further look at the judiciary in 2022, we're joined on the news at 10 by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adelola. He joins us from Ikoyi area in Lagos. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's get right into it, Senior Advocate. So flowing from that report, how would you assess the judiciary in the past year?
Well, quite frankly, if you ask me, like you're doing, I'd give kudos to the judiciary. They've done a lot of work at the various levels. We tend to assess them based on what we hear from the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal, but they have done well in most areas. And if you speak to private citizens of how their disputes settled, many of them will tell you that yes, there have been occasions where there has been a delay here and there. But largely, I think judiciary is important. But we as solicitors also need to encourage them to support.
Now, the issue of financial autonomy and better welfare for judicial officers literally dominated discussions throughout the year. Executive Order 10, which was designed to force state governments to obey the law, was shut down by the court itself. And towards the end of the year, President Buhari approved the immediate implementation of an enhanced salary and welfare scheme for judicial officers nationwide. But going forward, how do you think we can best tackle this fundamental issue of welfare?
I'd say this. Generally speaking, the issue of welfare or any policy of government will largely depend on those who work these government policies. There's no doubt in my mind that everyone knows what ought to take. The judiciary ought to finance properly and the legislature. So why don't we have a legislative campaign? Why don't we have executive at the federal level and at the state level? So what we should be talking about here is monies due to the judiciary should be made available to them directly. That's right. The executive order may have not been in consonance with the Constitution, but must find a way around it. They should receive their own finance. That's right.
2023 it's just started, but it's clearly an election year. And as is often the case, elections come with serious pressure on judges from politicians. We had our fair share in 2022, and sometimes these cases are aided by senior lawyers. What do you think we can do, should be done, to shield the judges?
Again, like I said earlier, whatever policy we have, whatever the laws are, whatever traditions we have, those who work these policies must be open-minded, sincere, and honorable. Judges must be able to say no to those who approach them. It may be very difficult because they're part of society, but they must begin also to detach themselves from the larger society Being a judge means that you have to be sober, means you have to be able to look at the society as one where you are the arbiter between parties, whether they're corporate, individuals, politicians who you live with, or in fact sometimes or friends. But that politicians themselves must purge themselves this tendency to approach judges and to seek due favors from them. Like a society, this is something.
I'd like to thank you so much, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adelola, for sharing your thoughts with us on the judiciary on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry expects the CBN MPC to raise key lending rate to 17% at its upcoming meeting to curb persistent inflation and prevent capital flight. So that's on business news. So join us again. Now to the transport sector. The Lagos Mass Rail Transit is a rapid transit system expected to change the face of public transportation in Lagos. The Blue Line, as it is known, a 27-kilometer stretch from Okukomaiko to Marina, will be powered by electricity, with 13 kilometers of the rail tracks already laid in the first phase from Mile 2 to Marina. But the state government is targeting a huge reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, but this is coming at a cost. Our correspondent, Dari Dawu, looks at the safety and cost implication of the Blue Line project.
With the completion of infrastructure works in the first phase of the Blue Line project, the interstate rail line is expected to be fully tested before it's open to commercial operations for passengers commuting on that corridor. But first, questions around safety and cost have been raised. The Blue Line will be powered differently and the rail tracks will be fully electrified, the first of its kind in the country. The state government had announced that electricity will be generated by an independent standalone facility, transmitted and distributed to the trains. In the case of the Blue Line, the trains will run on a 750 voltage, a high risk for trespassers. At the moment, there are no visible warning signs, but the state government has promised that in the coming days, there will be enough awareness.
This rail system is electrified, so we're going to have advocacy out there, let people understand, so that very close to start of commercial operations, we would be talking to people. Continuous advocacy will be going on from now till towards the end of the first quarter.
On this axis, there are rail crossings with elevated road structures built along the lines. Pedestrians are already using the bridge with the tracks fenced off. We asked some of the residents if they are aware of the electrified rail tracks. Are you aware that there will be a train on this axis and it will run on electricity?
I'm not aware. I'm just hearing it for the first time.
Okay.
I thought it's a manual railway as usual. Despite the barricade. For example, if you look at Suru Alaba, as they are putting the barricade, people are breaking it and they are passing through up to Kuka's area down to this place. The only way the state of federal government can do it, we need a lot of pedestrian bridge.
At least there should be a caution sign there so that people will know, so that they will not be able to pass there as well.
The initial cost of $135 million was proposed for the Lagos Urban Transportation Project, expected to be implemented by the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata. But the new rail project is attracting a different cost.
This one comes in at just under $45 million per kilometer. When you bother to look at the cost of metro, not an intercity rail line, a metro system in the middle of a city, where you see you are crossing water, we bridged over an existing bridge, we have elevated positions all over the place.
The blue, red and other lines are expected to have a positive ripple effect on the state's economy, but first alleviate traffic pressure and ease commuting in the country's commercial hub. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Well, the News at 10 train will now make a stopover at our Abuja studio where Linda Akigbe is sitting by for more. Good evening, Linda. It's over to you now.
Hello, Coyote. Good to see you. Public and private workers across Nigeria have resumed fully at work after the Yuletide and New Year celebrations, and many are doing so with high expectations, including the hope for a pay rise in the new year. Others too are hoping that the 2023 general elections, which is less than 8 weeks from now, will usher in a new government that will address current security and economic situations.
The federal government had declared 3 days as public holidays for this year's Yuletide. The holiday period is over, and many civil servants across the country are back to work with several expectations, especially in areas such as security, economy, and welfare.
We have been saying it for long that our pay pack is not, is not worthy. But we pray that God should help us, so that God should enter their minds so that they can give us a better pay.
In terms of security, honestly, we are expecting government to double its effort to ensure safety of lives and property of Nigerians.
Some of these civil servants also share their expectations on the forthcoming general elections and other plans to remove fuel subsidy later in the year.
We are hoping for election now, and in things like that, all we need is to be prayer and let God select who we want. We can be able to take us for where we are now. Because if you want to be sincere to ourselves, everything is very tough now.
My expectation is for us to have a free and fair election so that we will elect the person we feel that handle the situation as how we expected, that at the end, Nigerian citizens will rejoice over it.
2023 is an election year. We have so much expectation that through the election, there will be a positive change in the country.
On the side of the government, officials are expecting a more productive year from their employees.
The government and His Excellency has done very well to the civil servants. So my expectation is for the civil servants to continue to be very loyal to the government, very, very important key, and also dedicated, to their duties, so that the teeming population of the state will be reaping the dividends of democracy.
The informal sector of the economy is also coming alive as small-scale businesses across some states in the north are reopening for business. Many hope to see a more favorable business environment in the new year.
We're looking up to a high hope, a new beginning, a new year, sir, with a new hope, and with a new fulfilled promise, sir. Certainly they have resumed, and we're expecting that things will pick up, sir. Yes, that's our prayer and hope.
Available statistics reveal that the informal sector of the economy employs over 80% of Nigeria's total active workforce, which is estimated at 80 million people. A combination of business activities from this sector and that of the informal sector will significantly impact the country's economy in the new year.
In other stories, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State says the president has approved the deployment of technology to combat security in the southeast. According to him, the approved technology consists of surveillance equipment to potentially control crime and insecurity with minimal damage. Governor Uzodinma stated this after meeting with President Buhari in his office at the presidential villa.
I brought the greetings from my people to also thank him for the various supports he gave to us during this our period of security challenges, and then I appealed to him for a further support to support us with some technological deployments we have planned to be able to do an advanced kind of security control in the southeast, and he has also given his approval to that, and any moment from now we will be getting some surveillance equipments and some modern technologies that will help us manage security so that we can fight crime with little or no collateral damage. Those who are fighting me in Imo State, none of them, they are not saying we are not working. They're not saying we're not developing the place. They're not accusing us of any corruption All they're saying is they are contriving, instigating insecurity out of desperation, and then blaming the insecurity on a government. You have seen, I'm a subnational. The critical security measures are managed and controlled by federal government. So I cannot be blamed for insecurity because you cannot single out Imo State.
In Ogun State, the police say they have recovered the body of Oreoluwa Fatinoye, the son of the couple Kende and Bukola Fatinoye, who were gruesomely murdered by yet-to-be-identified arsonist in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, on New Year's Day. Oreoluwa was reportedly thrown into a river along the Adigbe-Obada Road in Abeokuta after he was kidnapped by the assailants who had killed his parents and set their house on fire. The decomposing body of Oreoluwa was discovered floating on the river by fishermen in the early hours of today. Oreoluwa and the housemaid were said to have been kidnapped by the assailants, and both were later thrown into the river. The arsonists had allegedly trailed the couple to their residence from their church, where they had attended the crossover service to usher in the new year. That's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry says it expects Nigeria's central bank to raise its benchmark lending rate to 17%, coming from 16.5% at its upcoming rates decision meeting this month. In a statement signed by its Director General, Dr. Chinyere Alumna, LCCI says the move is expected to curb persistent inflation and prevent capital flight in the country. The economic think tank also earlier recommended that the rate hikes alone is not enough to curb inflation, adding that issues around real factors like food supply disruptions, high energy cost, forex scarcity, and the security challenges need to be addressed to curb inflation. The CBN MPC is expected to hold its first meeting for the year 2023 before the end of January. Let's talk about the headline Purchasing Managers Index of Nigeria's private sector. It climbed to 54.6 in the month of December last year, up from 54.3 in November, signaling a marked monthly improvement in business conditions. The headline figure derived from the survey by foremost financial institution Stanbic IBTC shows that operating conditions of businesses also strengthened to their highest level since April last year. At the same time, business confidence picked up from the previous month's record low, while purchasing activity increased in each of the past 30 months. Meanwhile, employment rose for the 23rd successive month, but slightly in December, as rising workload and efforts to ease pressure on existing staff members also encouraged companies to increase their own workforce numbers. Improvements in demand were sustained despite rising price of fuel and raw materials, while new orders increased rapidly in the final month of 2022 amid strengthening customer demand. The survey further mentions that Nigerian companies also recorded growth of new export orders in the month of December, as the latest rise is substantial and the sharpest since August. Meanwhile, Stanbic IBTC PMI report affirmed that 56% of businesses surveyed were still strongly optimistic that output will rise within the new year. We head to the stock market now, where it began the first trading day in the year 2023 on a bullish note following bargain hunting for some blue chip equities despite a 63% decline in volume of trades. Let's hear the details from Ini John Mekwa.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Well, over 0.5% is a very good way to start the trading year, and the bull knows better. This means that the all-share index closed up more than 0.5%, in fact 0.67%, and we're building on that 51,000 that we closed on last year. The market cap also tells us another good story. 188 billion naira was added to the total market value, and I'm glad to say that the most liquid counter contributed largely to this. Banking was up 2.60%. Why not? When we have GT Co, we have FBN Holding, we have UBA, even Access Co, they all gained on their share prices, and that led to that. Consumer goods was largely driven by Boer Food. It gained largely on its share price today, but it's not all good news. Unfortunately, there's always the other side. Oil and gas was down marginally, but that did not stop our good news. Neither did it stop the positive market breadth that closed the first trading day of the year, and it did not stop a great and optimistic trade at the close of today. Will this continue? We'll watch and see. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa. It's back to you.
That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Coyote.
Well, thank you, Anne. The vote for Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives has ended with none of the candidates getting the necessary 218 votes to win outright. Republican Kevin McCarthy secured only 203 votes against Democratic nominee Hakeem Jeffries, who secured 212 votes. And elsewhere, an Israeli minister has irked the Palestinian community by visiting a holy site. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Palestinians have condemned a visit to a contested holy site in Jerusalem by a far-right Israeli minister as an unprecedented provocation. Filmed by a passerby, this is National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visiting a place known to Jews as the Temple Mount and to Muslims as Haram al-Sharif. Ben-Gvir, who has called for a harder line towards Palestinians, walked around the site surrounded by police. Competing claims to the compound bitterly divide Israel and the Palestinians. Tensions have risen with the advent of Israel's new nationalistic government. Mr. Ben-Gvir's visit was his first public act since the government, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was sworn in 5 days ago. Protesters have set off fireworks at police in the Bolivian city of Santa Cruz during the 6th day of protests following the arrest of local governor Luis Camacho. Protesters in Bolivia's farming region of Santa Cruz also blocked highways out of the province, threatening to snarl the domestic transport of grains and food. The region, a stronghold of the conservative opposition to socialist President Luis Acre, has seen thousands of people take to the streets and clashes with weaponized fireworks and cars burned. A court in Senegal has sentenced 2 lawmakers to 6 months in jail for assaulting a pregnant colleague during a parliamentary session. In a chaotic televised scene, Amy Ndiaye Gnibi was slapped in the face by opposition parliamentarian Massata Sam at the start of December. She responded by throwing a chair at Sam. She was then pushed to the ground by other lawmakers and kicked by Amadou Niang. Sam and Niang, both of the opposition party, were also ordered to pay a total of 5 million CFA francs, or $8,200 in compensation to Nibi. The brawl worsened political tensions in Senegal that have risen since the ruling party lost its comfortable majority in a July election. Authorities have confirmed that among the 4 dead in a tragic mid-air helicopter collision near an Australian theme park, 2 were travellers from the United Kingdom. And they said on Tuesday that the crash could have been much worse. According to Queensland State Police, the 2 craft collided about 300 feet in the air on Monday, as one was taking off and the other landing near SeaWorld on Australia's Gold Coast.
The second helicopter coming into land. Now that has remarkably managed to land upright. And considering the damage that was done to the front left-hand section of that helicopter where the pilot was sitting, that's been a remarkable achievement. So whilst it has been very tragic that 4 people have lost their lives and many families are mourning this morning, we could have had a far worse situation here, and the fact that that one helicopter has managed to land has been quite remarkable.
And animals of all shapes and sizes have been counted as ZSL London Zoo carried out its annual stocktake.
1, 2, 3.
I mean, I can only count 3, and we've definitely got 4.
Around 40,000 animals are housed at the zoo, and at the start of each year it's important to know exactly which species call it a home and the number of animals, insects, birds and mammals which are there.
So today is the annual stocktake at London Zoo, and as the name would suggest, it's the day, or indeed the beginning, of a week-long of counting that we do of all the animals here at the zoo. And in our case, we're going to be counting in the region of 14,000 animals and nearly 400 species. So a huge undertaking for the keepers here, and something that's really important for us to complete each year.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Football legend Edson Arantes do Nascimento, also known as Pelé, has been buried at the skyscraper cemetery overlooking the pitch that made him famous. Pelé was buried at the world's tallest cemetery overlooking Santos Stadium. His coffin was carried through Santos in Brazil as thousands of mourners lined the streets to bid farewell to the 3-time World Cup winner. Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo has described himself as a unique player and insists his career is not over after joining the Saudi Pro League side Al Nassr. Ronaldo said he had done all he could in Europe and was hungry for a new challenge. While the spotlight is firmly on Cristiano Ronaldo as the Portugal skipper was unveiled as an Al Nassr player at Musrud Park. Ronaldo, who was a free agent, joined the Saudi Arabian club last week. He was greeted by a sea of yellow and blue at Al Nassr's home ground, where thousands of fans waited patiently to catch a glimpse of their star recruit. In the English Premier League, Arsenal were held to a goalless draw at the Emirates Stadium by Eddie Howe's Newcastle, while Everton lost 4-1 to Brighton. Leicester City also lost at home to Fulham, while Manchester United were 3 goals to the good against AFC Bournemouth at Old Trafford. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today signed the 2023 appropriation bill of 21.83 trillion naira, as well as the 2022 supplementary appropriation and finance bills into law for immediate implementation. Also today, the APC presidential candidate Senator Bola Tinubu engaged stakeholders in Kano ahead of the party's rally in the city tomorrow, where he promised to transform the commercial city if elected president next month. And that's the news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikilu. Good night.